So we are here today with Kristi Machica, our clinical director, therapist, registered play therapist, all sorts of letters after your name.
Keep the alphabet.
Yes, yes. So I'm just going to start with a simple question. Um, Something you should know, but I will say I saw a meme several years ago that was like, why do I get nervous before group introductions? It's like,
Uh-huh.
I know my name, I know where I live, but I feel like that for these. Let's just start with an easy one. Tell me why you became a therapist.
Yeah, so I've known since I was very little, probably in like the end of elementary school, that I wanted to be a counselor. I remember telling people about it when I was like at church or just at school. It's like I always wanted to be a counselor. That stuck all the way up till high school when I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a pediatrician, and started out pre-med, and then quickly realized, no, like let's go back to psychology. That's your
Okay.
niche. So I just kind of went back to it. It's always been something that I've wanted to do. I really enjoy like talking to people, like understanding like what makes them who they are, and I like people to be in a good space, and so it just kind of was a natural fit for me.
That's incredible to know, like for most
Yeah, I think sixth
clearly.
grade. I remember in
Okay.
sixth grade saying
Yeah.
something about it. Yeah.
Very cool. So now that you're in it, how do you like the work?
Oh, I love it. I just one of the things I talk with people about is like getting some intrinsic value out of their work. Because I feel like we spend like 90% of our time at work. And so we should love it. But I really do. I enjoy getting to know all different types of people. I love seeing a variety of people. And just the best part is when they kind of come back and they say, I actually don't have anything to talk to you about today. Because that
Mhm.
means that we've worked through a lot of stuff and they've done a lot of the work and are at a space that they're just feeling really great. And so I just get a lot of value out of that personally. And just really, like I said, enjoy getting to know people. And it's so interesting how people perceive the world and can
Yeah.
come at it from different angles for sure.
Yeah, it is so interesting how a day in the life of a therapist can hold so much because people are so different.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
you just get into it with
Mhm.
empathy about everything, and you leave that day and you're like, oh wow, I talked about a lot of different stuff today.
Absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things that always makes me laugh is that I'm definitely a person that likes to have like my check marks at like the end of
Mhm.
the day of like I've accomplished,
Yeah,
the stuff on my list, and counseling is not that.
right.
But there's other times where something pops up that, somebody sends me a text that says, thank you so much. I've grown so much this year because of my sessions. And so like that kind of reaffirms what I'm doing. And so it's like a check mark, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah,
But that growth is just so awesome to see, and the changes that people can make over a course of time. Yeah.
yeah. Tell me about those letters RPT, registered play therapist. What does it
Yeah.
mean to people not in the field? Like, how can you break that down for?
Right. So registered play therapists have some credentialing process to go through where there's a specific amount of training and hours in workshops and collegiate upper graduate level classes, along with supervision for a couple of years. Well, that's how long it took me. And in dedicated hours, just actually putting that work into play, which is funny, play on words. And so that credentialing process takes a little while, and it's very specific requirements that are on there to put you as somebody that's an expert in that field. And then obviously continuing education, and checking in and re-credentialing every couple of
Mhm,
years as well.
mhm. Yeah. So, what does play therapy look like in the context of actually a session?
Yeah, so that can vary a little bit based on somebody's like mindset. I tend to be a little bit more directive of a play therapist. There's what's called child-centered play therapy, which is really like allowing the child to come into the space. Children really work through a lot of issues that they're dealing with, relationship dynamics, anxiety, trauma through their play. I think people have seen that Mr. Rogers has the work of children is play. And so they work through a lot of things. And so it's there to kind of track along and help them kind of just find that path for themselves to resolve some of that work. I tend to be a little bit more directive, meaning that I give more specific exercises that we're working on. So there may be some sand tray therapy that has more specific prompts, or there may be games that I implement or activities that I implement that work specifically on whatever the presenting concern is for that child. So it kind of varies a little bit.
Okay. Do you only use play therapy with your kiddo clients?
No, and that really depends. Some of my kids are extremely, I mean, they're born 30 years old, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
We've had 7-year-olds that was like, I really prefer talk therapy, which is really funny to me. I love kids.
Adorable.
They make me laugh so hard because they say the most random things and they just don't care. And so, if a child does process, at a more cognitive level, then I will use a lot of more talk therapy. But I implement play with everybody. It's not just
Okay.
my kids, it's with
Yeah.
teens and adults as well. Because sometimes we just need to remember how to play. And the people
Yeah.
through.
So what would that look like with an adult? Somebody who's maybe in their 30s or 40s coming
Mhm.
to you, working with you in individual work. What would a play therapy session look like for somebody who's
I tend to use with my adults, I tend to use more of the sand tray work,
okay?
or using some reenactment of things. Like trauma work can be done through reenactment of with like toys and acting out, that kind of thing, the trauma, as well as like I said, the sand tray, where it really is presenting a different modality. Sometimes we don't have the words for what we're working through, and so that just gives it a little bit of a different perspective on it. And sometimes the stuff that comes up in a sand tray or through reenacting like really gets this kind of like a epiphany of like, oh, that's what I was really dealing with. So it just really allows for just a variety in there when sometimes the language is just not there to kind of deal with and work through.
Yeah, very cool. I'm sure that is something that surprises a lot of adults when you
Yeah.
bring that into session.
Yeah, there's a little apprehension a little bit when I'm like, we're
Mhm.
going to get in the sand tray.
Yep.
But there has been so much like, oh, powerful just realizations through that work that you're not even expecting. Even I've, as a play therapist, the training kind of is you doing some of the work as well. Because we're not going to have our clients do anything that we wouldn't be willing to
Right.
do ourselves. And so, even for myself personally, in doing some of these trainings, doing sand tray work, there's a lot of things that like, oh, I didn't realize I was feeling that way until I put these objects in and I had like a reaction to it.
Mm.
And so it's a really powerful thing. And I think if people can kind of just go with it, they
Yeah.
might be pleasantly surprised at how effective it can be.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. What kind of clients do you work with?
Right. So right now, I would say probably about 90% of my clients is maternal mental health. But I do have quite a few teens on my caseload and one little guy right now who really shakes up my
Yeah.
week. And so, I really like the variety, but I would say probably my main niche is maternal mental health. I just really love working with that population. So much changes when you
Mm.
become a mom, and like realizing like who am I outside of my role as a mom, that
Yeah.
identity, and then how do I relate to my significant other and my partner, and who are we outside of our role as parents. So that's a lot of the work that I like um, to do and really help people process through. It's a lot of overwhelm and anxiety that comes with having to raise kids, and
Yeah.
then still take care of yourself as well. So I love working with the population and just get a lot out of it.
Mhm. Very cool. How do you kind of approach that work? Like help people formulate doing the work of finding their identity, lowering their overwhelm? It's kind of
Yeah. Well, number one, I will say I tend to use a little bit of humor in therapy. What you see is what you get with me, and I'm a smiley person.
that is true.
But
I can attest.
but obviously appropriately. But the way that I kind of look at it is that our experiences really kind of dictate how we perceive the world. So if you have a repeated, situation that's happening, it kind of is like, oh, I'm going to assume that's going to continue. Sometimes that's an accurate thought and an accurate belief. And then how do we work through that if that is the case? And sometimes it's like, just because it happened that way doesn't mean it is happening that way all the time. So, really challenging some of the belief systems that we come up with, what we tell ourselves, the messages that we tell ourselves about ourselves, the world, and looking to make sure it's a mindset that's benefiting us and getting us to work towards our goals. So that's the way I really approach things. I'm a pretty laid back therapist and let people come in. I'm a firm believer that this is your hour.
Mhm.
And so we talk about things. And so I think that even if we are working with maternal anxiety or overwhelm, that, that may be the main track that we're focusing on, but the day to day stuff that's happened over the last week can trump that and need to be addressed before we can move on to address some of the other things. So pretty good with the flow in that vein, of meeting the client where they're at in that particular day.
Yeah. Awesome. I can tell you do good work just from how you talk about it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Um, Switching tracks a little bit from the professional to personal, what is something surprising about you? It can be a fun fact, a surprising hobby, surprising music you like, hidden
Oh
tips.
gosh. Well, I think if people read my profile, they know I have 5 kids, but I think people are still shocked by that. And we're all alive and well, which is, I think, the bigger success of it all. Gosh, something surprising about me. Most people don't know this, but I played the bass drum in high school, like in the marching band, which
I
is
did
kind
not
of,
know that.
yeah. So like the little Energizer bunny, because you guys can't tell on here, but I'm literally very short. And so having a massive drum on my front is something that people always kind of laugh about. But yeah, other than that, I run, work out, and just try to enjoy family time. I love to travel. So we just kind of do what we do. I don't know.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time and energy and smiles this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for all you do. And I'm excited for clients to see this and give us a call to work with you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.